I really should put some music on that intro, huh? Otherwise, it's pretty dark and ominous. What's going on, everybody? It's Nick here from Nick's Kicks and Comics, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Pull List. I got a pretty big show with some pretty big fellas, pretty big stars on this episode, and we're going to get down and dirty on our positives and negatives in our collecting careers. So we'll start first with the man with the plan, the big Papa Pump Nasty, whatever you'll call it, Mr. Berk. How are you?
What's up, Nick? How you doing, man?
Good. I'm not nervous about my show. I'm a little bit more nervous about the big sale going on tonight. Going on.
We got a auction tonight, 10 p.m. Eastern on my channel. I'm selling. You're selling. Like 5 or 6 other guys are selling. It's going to be a lot of fun. I got some pretty hot books that I picked up just today that are going to be going up for sale tonight. So it's going to be a lot of fun for sure. But I'm excited for the show as well.
All right, cool. Awesome. Thank you for being here, sir. We'll go with the second head honcho, Mr. Mark from the Legion of Comics.
You're really grading us right now?
Grading?
Does that put me at an 8.5? You're the 9.8 Papa Pump Nasty.
You did get pressed and clean today, so I'll give you a 9.
I did. Yeah, I did.
9 too. How are you doing today?
Fantastic. I'm doing great. The wife talked me into getting a hot rock foot massage, and it was just what the doctor ordered.
Was that your first time getting a massage?
Yeah. Like I normally am the one that stays behind with the kids, and it was fantastic. I wasn't ever opposed to it. Just like my mom just happened to be right down the street with the other grandkids, and they popped in and played with my kids and for an hour and a half. And dude, it was fantastic. I'm definitely doing that again. Highly recommend.
No. As you get older, it becomes more of a mandatory thing than
and the chair sits there and like legit massages you while you're doing it. It's not just like one of those cheap little punch in the back things, but like it was fantastic.
Speaking of cheap little punch in the back things, what's our next guest, Mr. Austin?
Segue.
Always taking shots at me when I leave the stream. How are you doing, Mr.
Fantastic intro. Thanks for having me, man.
Thank you for coming. How are you doing today?
Very good. I feel like I've been with you guys all day today.
You were good to jump off when you did because I got like zero work done today.
Yeah, I definitely had to run. Otherwise, productivity would have been non-existent for sure. But it's always a good time.
Yeah, true. Speaking of a good time, I just like to segue. Mr. Chris, the comic vet.
Thanks for having me, Nick. I'm good, man. Just finished Black Widow, so when everyone's ready to start talking spoilers, I'm good to spoil the hell out of that movie. Just not tonight.
Did you like it?
Yep. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Did you like it as a superhero movie or as a movie in general?
I would say somewhere in between. Somewhere in between.
That's fair.
Yeah. As I mentioned,
I enjoyed it as an action movie.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. After my show last night, I can say, I said to everybody that I can easily watch those 2 Black Widows for an hour and a half, 2 hours, no problem. But the rest of it was, in my opinion.
Yeah.
All right. Not too many people in the chat just yet. We'll say hello to Mr. Shop for Comics. Mr. Shop is on his way to his 100th subscriber. You should be hitting it soon.
Awesome.
And the other guy, the actual Dracula, Mr. Adrian, how are you? He took us on a trip to one of his Canadian comic stores during Chip's live cast. That was mid-afternoon, I believe. Mid-afternoon. All right, so with the chat caught up to, we're going to start with what I want to know first is a little bit about your collecting career. I want to know if you've been collecting since day one, if there have been breaks. If there have been breaks, what brought you back? We'll go around the horn. We'll start with you, Mr. Berk.
So I started collecting comic books 5.5 years ago. It was January of 2016. I did like comic books as a kid. My mom used to always take me to the grocery store when she went, and I would go to the comic book aisle, magazine aisle, just sit on the floor and read through them. I'm sure I just looked at the pictures. But I remember looking through them. The very first comic book that I remember reading, it's probably not the first one I actually read, was Batman 497, where Bane breaks Batman's back. That's obviously a big moment in Batman's comic book history. And so I remember that book a lot. We never bought any. I do remember a comic book store being down the way from where I did Taekwondo. But I started collecting again, or I started collecting in general in January of 2016 when the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers series came out with issue 0, and then the Batman TMNT series came out. And I remember reading about both on Yahoo.com. That day, I went over to the comic book store and I got a Red Ranger and Black Ranger variant for issue 0 of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and then issue 2 of Batman TMNT. Then I came back to the store and I ordered issue number 1 online. So that's really how I started collecting comic books. And as you know, obviously over the years, started collecting more slabs, buying bigger books, starting a YouTube channel, all of that. So that's how I started collecting comic books.
So it's been an eventful 5 years for you.
It has been, man. It really, really has.
And you've had no interest in comics before that when you were a kid? Nothing?
I mean, I liked it when I was a kid. I didn't like it enough to like go buy them. I remember asking my parents to buy them, and they would always say, "No, I'm not spending money on that." But no, I didn't have any as a kid ever. I had a lot of sports cards as a kid, lots of sports cards, but not any comic books. I feel like at that time, comic books were looked down upon, while sports card collecting was considered cool because you like sports and all that stuff as a boy. So I don't know. I didn't have any comic books as a kid though. No.
Oh, okay. All right. So it has been straight through for you, and it's just been success after success after success.
Sure.
Speaking of success, we'll segue to Mr. Mark, Legion of Comics. How about you? Don't make that face.
No, my story is really simple. I'm just a second-generation collector. My dad's been collecting since the early 60s. I've grown up around it. Comics were a part of my life before I can remember my life. Pretty much learned how to read with comic books. The awesome artwork and the pictures and the superheroes drew me into wanting to read and be present with books and everything. And grew up in comic shops. My first job was at my local LCS. And, the LCS owner now has watched me grow up. He's known my dad for decades. He's watching my kids grow up. It's just part of my life. As far as like hard collecting goes, it's came in ebbs and flows where I would be back issue reading or picking up monthlies off the shelf. And I think that's probably normal case for people when they go through their 20s as well, if they read comics through their 20s. But hitting a good stride here, getting more settled in life where it's just becoming just such a smooth second nature just to keep up with them again for these past few years. And it's instead of just back issue reading everything, which I still love to do, love trades and stuff, but it's just been part of my life.
So I have to ask, is there any possible transition in the future to buying that store?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. I haven't really thought about it.
All right. Just figured it might be.
I should think about it. Golly, Nick.
All right. Well, cool. All right. How about you, Mr. Lawson Lemme? How did you start? And have you went straight through?
No, I started probably late 80s, way back in the day, and collected all the way through the 90s and just stopped around early 2000, 2004, 2005. Life just happens. And then I've always kind of like still peeped in on the industry, and kind of looked in from the outside. And then, news broke that Todd McFarlane, who lives pretty close to me, was doing a local signing to celebrate his 300th Spawn issue. So I, picked up all the books I could, shot down there, got my books signed, and that was it, man. I hit the ground running again. So ever since then, which was mid to late 2019, I think, when that hit, I've just been at it ever since, gung ho.
Nice. Did you have a favorite book from back in the day in those mid 80s, early 90s?
It was all Spider-Man. I mean, back in the 80s, it was Spider-Man. Spider-Man was everything. Obviously, the most recognizable character for a kid to get into. So I just kind of got it, hung on to it. And then, when Spawn came out, I gravitated towards that. It was like the evil, darker version of Spider-Man for the most part. So I jumped on that train, and I've been on it ever since.
Did you watch the show on Channel 5 back in the day?
Oh, way back in the day, yeah.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
I gravitated towards that because the guy who played Peter Parker his first name was Nick. So I was like, awesome, yeah.
Nobody's perfect.
See, now if I knew how to work StreamYard, I would take him away right now. But I guess I get as good as I give. And speaking of Knicks, all right. Speaking of good guys, we'll get to you, Mr. Chris. How are your collecting days started?
Well, I'm a second generation comic book reader myself. My dad grew up on the east coast of Canada on a small island called Newfoundland, and they used to get comic books basically twice a month delivered by ship to the small fishing village that he grew up in. And the majority of those books that were dropped off were all American Westerns. So he grew up reading the American Westerns of the mid to late 50s and then early 60s. And then as more superhero comic books became more prevalent and started taking over the industry that way, he graduated into that till eventually it was time for him to get his post-secondary education, and he put that comic book down. It was after I was born that it was introduced to me, but more in the Archie and Richie Rich and Casper the Friendly Ghost, the children's types of comic books. In the very late 70s, early 80s, when I started paying attention to a comic book and learn how to read a comic book and all that kind of thing. With that being said, it wasn't so much collecting comic books as opposed to if I saw something and my parents were in a good mood, they would pick it up for me, but they would also pick up, baseball and hockey cards. And at the time, I can remember my parents going all in on Superman trading cards when the Christopher Reeve movie was released back in the day. So I can remember that they were helping me try to assemble that full set kind of thing. I can remember on the back of those cards, if you had 9 cards, there was it put together like a small poster of Christopher Reeve in front of the American flag. So pop culture and that kind of thing has always been a part of my life. And I actually have my comic book here, even though you said not to be prepared, or not to show off anything. But the very first comic book I ever bought with my own money was The Amazing Spider-Man 274, which came out in the winter of 1985. I was 11 at the time. And this is that book.
Nice.
It's pretty mangled. Let me tell you, it looks like it's good here, but this would grade like a 1.5 maybe. I remember looking. It came down to this book versus Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, and I bought this book because it says no ads, 32 pages, and it looked like Peter was going through a whole lot of turmoil with people in his life. So I picked up this book. Little did I know till much later in life that this is a 95-cent Canadian variant, and it's the newsstand as well, because I was gifted this same book in the 9.8. Yeah, in a 9.8, and this is just the normal one that has both the American and the Canadian prices, and is the direct version as well. So yeah, with that being said, so from 85 till heavily 93, 94, comic books were a part of my life. Every week I was going to my local shop, picking up the new books, and I was really on top of everything that was happening in both Marvel and DC. And then when the split happened with the artists and those creators moving to Image, I along with everyone, I followed them into Image, and my personal favorite was the Savage Dragon. So I really enjoyed what Eric Larson was doing with Savage Dragon. It just sucked because all of their books were delayed every single month. I don't know if you guys can remember that, or if you're old enough to remember that.
They were too busy partying all the time.
Yeah, they were too busy touring all the time.
I blame it on Liefeld for partying.
Yeah. But just to, I was a part of the comic books all during that, including the sports card boom of the late 80s and early 90s when Upper Deck first showed up and everything else. I was a part of all that too, spending money everywhere on everything. But the one thing that was always a part of my life was comic books until the mid 90s when I discovered girls. And then I had, my son came along in 1998. So all the money that I had went into, putting together a family and all that. And it was what drew me back to comic books was, I don't know if you guys can remember, but the Marvel's Ultimate line had the death of Spider-Man 10, 15 years ago where they killed off Peter as Spider-Man, and eventually it brought in Miles. But that's what drew me back. So I remember finding out somewhere in some sort of news outlet that they were killing off Spider-Man. Well, that blew my mind because I was always a Spider-Man fan. And so I went out and picked up multiple copies of that book to find out what in the world was going on. It was only then that I realized that the ultimate comic book series was just an alternate universe, or just a different take, a modern take on the heroes or whatever. But eventually that led me back into comic books more. I was picking up a lot of trades at the time, hunting down good stories, going into the comic shop maybe once a month to find out what were good trades that just came out of interesting storylines, as opposed to just spending a lot of money every week on books that may or may not be good. And it was about 6 or 7 years ago when I developed a friendship with the artist Ken Lashley, and I started picking up books that he was doing on the monthly, whether it was an X title or he was doing Doomed and a lot of the DC stuff that was coming out. He would do covers and stuff like that. So I started picking up books that he was working on, and it led me back into weekly purchases to the point where I am today. I know that was long-winded, but that's my story.
No, that's good. I mean, it's always good to remember where you're coming from so you can get to where you're at and going to be. All right, cool. So we went this way. Well, we went this way. So we'll start with you, Chris. You just ended.
Sure.
Give me a crazy story, positive or negative, in your collecting career.
I know Americans don't celebrate Boxing Day, but Boxing Day is December 26th, the day after Christmas Day. It's a day that is a holiday as a part of the British Commonwealth, and Canada still recognizes that day. That day, because it was a holiday, I decided to take a vacation to New York City. I was in Times Square for December 26th, and I decided to go into Midtown to say that, hey, I've been to Midtown Comics. Like, it's one of those comic shops that, I don't want to say like it's a mecca, but everyone has heard of Midtown. And, you know, if you're in New York City, you want to at least check out Midtown. So I can remember that particular morning. It was probably about 10:30 in the morning, walking up the very tall set of stairs that they have from Times Square, going up to their location. It's a two-story store for those that haven't been there to that particular location. And when you walk in, they have all their new releases on the right side, and they have their trades on the left. I remember walking along and like, well, I heard they have statues. Oh, that must be upstairs. So I went up to the second level, and I'm checking out the statues and all their figures and some back issues on the wall. And I'm just kind of fanboying out, being a tourist kind of thing, and decided to go back downstairs. And they have some more statues on that back wall behind the trades. And I'm looking at some of these statues, and I kind of bump into an older gentleman. I apologize because, you know, that Canadians often say sorry. And he looked at me and said, no problem. And it was Frank Miller. So for that moment, I just kind of fanboyed. And I'm like, oh, my goodness. And turned around, and the young lady who I was with, I said, that's Frank Miller. And she said, who's Frank Miller? So, Frank Miller created The Dark Knight, 300, like I can go on, Sin City. And she's like, oh, I know Sin City. Jessica Alba was in that. And I'm like, yeah, Jessica Alba was in Sin City. We all know that she was in Sin City. So I said, I'm going to ask if I can get a picture with him. And he may or may not, because I don't know what his personality is like, but he may be a little bit of a different dude. We'll see how it goes. So I handed her my phone, and I just quietly approached him. And I said, Mr. Miller, I'm a big fan. Would you mind if I had a quick photo with you? And he said, absolutely. And he had his black hat on and a long trench coat, and he threw his arm around me, and we took a picture together. And yeah, so that was one of the highlights, because after that, I turned around and bought 3 trades that Frank Miller wrote from Midtown. And I turned around and tried to get an autograph from him, and he was gone.
Yeah. He kind of dresses like the Shadow, doesn't he? He
does dress like the Shadow. But yeah, he was very cool to deal with. I know some people have had stories where it wasn't so positive, but one positive moment for me in comic books and comic book collecting was just a random bump into Frank Miller in downtown New York, Manhattan, at Midtown Comics.
Yeah, see, that's the thing about New York. It's like you never know who you're going to bump into. That's why you're always keeping your eyes up. And most of the time, they'll oblige you. It's like, unless you're being a real a-hole, they'll say what's up. So, Cool, man. I don't think I could ever top that story, but we'll see who Mr. Austin LeMay. Can you sympathize, or can you add to that kind of?
No, not even close. But I'll give you two short stories, a positive and a negative. The negative is Mr. Todd McFarlane announcing all of this Spawn Universe nonsense while I'm trying to complete a full Spawn run. Now all of the prices have completely doubled and tripled for all of the remaining issues that I want. And now I'm sitting here with an incomplete run.
How many more issues you got to go?
Just under 40. But that's...
Oh, very nice.
That's, I mean, technically maybe 16 or 17. But if I only have a newsstand, I don't count that as having it.
That's Todd McFarlane now. He wants to give you those.
My dog doesn't like when I talk bad about Todd. But you may want to pass on me until this dog stops freaking out. But I would say a positive would be the way this community supported my artwork. I was just some guy in the chat. My wife's going to beat the dog. Yeah, I was just some guy in the chat, and I'm not entirely sure. I may have shared something on Instagram, and immediately people were just supportive of my artwork, and I would say that that's probably the biggest positive that I've received out of this community or comic book collecting overall.
So do you remember who was that first stream? What was your first stream?
That I was on? Mm-hmm. Two Brothers Comics.
Yeah, that's a pretty good start. All right.
Yeah, but I was on there as a fan. At that point, nobody even knew that I drew. And then people started to find out. So Nick at Two Brothers Comics actually hired me to do their Babylon logo. So I knocked that out. I did a little, some drawing. I did a canto for him, sent it his way. I don't know if you guys have seen the canto. But, I try to spread the love and do some artwork for as many people as I can, especially you guys who've supported me since the beginning.
Yeah, man. And we all get upset when you take that artwork and chuck it behind your head without care. So,
Seriously.
Let's try not to do that anymore.
No promises. I don't see that stuff as artwork.
Crazy. And if you guys have not checked out Mr. Austin LeMay's Instagram, please do so. And I'm sure you will not want him to chuck that artwork behind your head either. His head. So, all right, Mr. Mark, how about you? Let's hear a crazy or a not so crazy story.
I guess a good story was would be at last year at the Clayton Crane signing here in town. Me and my wife went and took a bunch of books get signed. I had a Detective Comics 1000, and it was the only book that I planned on getting the Infinity signature on. So I was going to get specific colors on the other ones, and we were sitting there talking to him, and it was like the last book he had in the stack, and he was talking to us, and he just started signing, and he didn't pay attention and change markers. So by the time he got to the end of it, I'm looking at him like he's an idiot. He goes, "What happened?" I said, "That was supposed to be an Infinity signature." So he apologized and he remarked it for free. And while he was doing it, Austin Ott walked up. He's like, "Clayton, you can't do remarks yet." And because apparently he does that kind of stuff a lot for people. Being like thankful of his fans. He's just happy to do stuff like that. But at the same time, guys like Austin to make sure he's getting properly compensated for his art. But it was really awesome that we got that free remark. That was really cool. So I guess a bad story would be I've moved a few times and I've had to take my collection and box up and put it in storage. And it was in storage when we had a kind of a rougher hurricane come through the area a couple of years ago. And we're not on the coast, but we get the tail ends of them and stuff. And it stormed really bad and flooded the storage unit and destroyed countless comics, including my first Red Hood, that whole era of comics, when Red Hood first appeared. That's the biggest one to the gut. I'm a big Jason Todd fan, but I just threw them all away. Broke my heart.
Yeah, that's heartbreaking for sure.
Yeah, it was about 3 long boxes of comics that they got the bottoms of them just soaked all the way through. And even with them being in the bags, it didn't help because the moisture and the humidity just went up and into. I mean, they would have had to all been CGC to not get moisture onto the book at that point.
Steve, I hope you have a good story because now I'm sad.
I am too.
Yeah, Steve, let's hear it, man.
I feel like I've been sitting over here for like 20 minutes while the comic.
Sorry, man. Sorry.
Damn, Steve.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I have lots of good stories, you know.
Sorry.
I'll just keep talking while I'm supposed to be talking. No. I went to a couple Comic Cons and I had a really good time. I got to meet Tom King back when he was doing Good Things on Batman, and that was a really, really fun experience for me because I remember him saying, like, this was right after the whole Batman 24 Catwoman proposal thing where he says, what do you want to see in Batman coming up? And I was like, I don't know. What do you have planned? And then he asked me what I do for a living. He's like, oh, you know, teachers are, you know, great. And, you know, we should all be thankful for you, blah, blah, blah. And that was a really fun experience. Followed up by a really, really bad experience. He was sitting right next to Clay Mann, and Clay Mann did not, like, he has horrible social skills. Like, he did not want to talk to me whatsoever. And, like, at that same con, I met Brian Azzarello, he's like a famous Batman guy. Everyone knows he's got horrible social skills as well. And that was a horrible experience, too. Like, I paid this guy $5 or $10 for him to just sign it and just, like, look at me like he hated me. And that wasn't a fun experience.
Maybe he did.
Did you have the sleeves on?
What's that?
Did you have sleeves on?
Yeah, I did.
That's the problem.
That was the problem. But, you know, at the same con, like, you have good experiences and bad experiences. I got to meet the Green Ranger, which was awesome. Freddie E. Williams, 2 years in a row, signed my Batman TMNT series. He's the cover artist and interior artist for the Batman TMNT, all 3 volumes. And he's from Kansas City, so he's really cool. Got to meet Scotty Young, who is a really, really cool dude. He's a trip for sure. And getting to hang out with some people in the community at, you know, the Crane signings the last 2 years in a row. I've been up to Minnesota to hang out with D-Rock Comics multiple times. He also went to the con with me in Kansas City a year ago. And I don't know, I just feel like the best part of this, like, comic book collecting is the community. Getting to hang out with everyone, you know, spreading love and becoming friends and all that stuff. It's just been a lot of fun. And then obviously starting a YouTube channel. I would have been happy if one, like, channel member, regardless of tier, and to be where I'm at right now, if, like, basically everyone on this panel, except for Chris, is a Berk fan member.
It's because you don't like me, but okay.
Shit. So, no, I'm serious. I can't be thankful enough for, you know, how awesome you guys are and supporting me and supporting everyone else. And as soon as Mark gets to 1,000 and launches that join button, I'm in there like swimwear, bro. I'll be there. So,
Nice. And how long have you been on YouTube?
2.5 years. Was
it always this friendly?
It has always been friendly for sure. Like, my first year, I learned a lot. Like, I'm a journalism teacher, so, like, I'm used to, like, news videos and, like, coming at things from a journalistic standpoint. Like, a lot of people don't know this. I'm actually a way, way, way better writer than I am on camera. Like, I mess up a lot. I stutter. I talk too fast. But when I'm writing, I have time to think. I can come up with better words, better sentences, all that stuff. So this was a little bit more difficult for me, even though, like, I teach it. I still teach it from a journalistic standpoint. So I did learn quite a bit in my first year. But it has been a lot of fun and a learning experience. And I feel like the best part about comic book YouTube is all of the live streams and getting to hang out with everyone off the cuff, you know, having fun. Some people going off the rails sometimes. I don't know. It's just been a lot of fun, and it's been amazing.
Tyler from My Comics. For sure, Tyler. Yeah, and I can attest because, like I said to Austin earlier, my whole workday was shot. And the problem with summers is my wife's a teacher also, and she's home, and she's asked me 3 or 4 times today, "Are you working today?" Like, yeah, I'm working. As long as I'm in front of a computer, I'm okay. But she wants me to go out and do yard work. She wants me to do everything else, and I'm like, I can't. I'm working. But I'm on 3 different live streams for 8 hours, so.
Carlito has been a friend of mine pre-YouTube. Him and I did live streams together when I used to do them in my kitchen. So he is an awesome guy to still be friends with me. He sent me lots of AOKs. Everyone should be subbed up to him and be friends with him and following him on Instagram and YouTube for sure.
Yeah, I think Carlito also liked Black Widow. Berk, you haven't seen it yet, right?
I have not seen it yet. Is it good?
You'll get different opinions. I don't want to spoil anything.
If you keep your expectations in check, it's an action
I really
movie.
hope that Jeremy Renner is Taskmaster, but I feel like he's not going to. Because they keep talking about Budapest.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make any comments. Sorry, man. I don't want to spoil anything for you.
We can talk in the background. I'm not going to spoil anything either, but all right. So Berk, we'll give you another 10 minutes to talk since all right. Comic
Did I talk a lot?
Yeah. No.
No way I talked as much as that. No way.
Hey, so let's have another story then. What else you got for us as far as positives or negatives? Anything that stands out for you about this community and collecting in general?
Okay, so I remember Bueller and Simple Man's Comics were on a stream together, and they were talking about, having a YouTube channel and comic books. Back when Simple Man's Comics had 3,000 or 3,500 subs, and I remember being in there, and I want to say Bueller had 5,000 at the time. And I was in there talking to them, and they were talking about Power Rangers. Everyone knows I love Power Rangers. And I just remember, all of a sudden getting a message from Jack, who at the time was working with Brian over at Simple Man's Comics, asking if I wanted to work with them to announce some covers. And I'm like, yeah, of course. I love Power Rangers. So we started with Drac and New Dawn. And I started, announcing all those covers, and I went to Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and TMNT, and then I went to issues 1 through 7 or 8 of Mighty Morphin. So I've announced like 20 covers at this point. It feels like for Simple Man's Comics, and I just it's so amazing to have other channels that are way bigger than I am recognize who I am, recognize what I like, and work with me. And working with them is how I got with the 616comics.com, who at the time was a very, very new online retailer, and they're now a sponsor of the channel. They have awesome variants and exclusives and all that on their channel. They're working with Megan Hutchinson Cates, John Boy Myers, Del Otto. I mean, they're working with pretty much every single cover artist. I would like to see the Clayton Crane cover at some point, but he pretty much only works with Black Flag. Anyways, so I don't know. I just feel like this community is amazing, and it's opened a lot of doors for me, working with the 616 and Simple Man's, and finally got my own variant as well over there. And I did not expect any of that to happen. I remember asking, can I have my own variant? Would you be interested in it? And I got an immediate yes. Wow. Do you want to be a sponsor of the channel and sponsor the monthly Berk Box? Immediate yes. So all you have to do, I feel like, is just ask, and people are more willing to do things if you ask them. I don't know. This community is amazing, and I'm just really thankful for everything that's happened to me and all that. So
yeah, and that in my short time, I think I've been with the Berk fam 2 or 3 months now, and all I've heard are great stories about how you've helped people or encouraged people to get out there and make their channel. All right, Panda tells me all the time about the impetus and him getting in YouTube and him starting a channel was all because of you.
It wasn't all because of me, but I did help, and I did edit his first 3 or 4 videos for him, and I made his intro, and I made his logo. And I remember Mark only had Adventures of Mark and Finn YouTube channel, and it wasn't even a channel; it was just family content. I was like, dude, you got to get on Instagram. He's like, I don't do Instagram. I don't do it. He did, and then they changed the name of his channel. Now he has a channel that's almost at 1,000 subscribers. So I mean, I didn't do anything. That was all Mark for sure. But it's been amazing to see the growth of all of my friends. For sure.
Yeah, I asked you. I just had conversations with you and loosely asked you for advice, and you gave me just a checklist with 3 things on it, and I just follow those to the letter, which is not a specific letter, but it's a basic format. If you want to make content on this platform for people to digest, it's really simple. People overthink it.
Absolutely. They really, really do.
Yeah, I think I might need to get that checklist as well.
Oh, I'll hook you up. I'll hook you up.
It takes work.
I watched the video he put out on it.
It does take
It
a
takes
lot of
work.
work. It really does.
No,
Well,
and the thing is too is that, and I'll be honest, like for me, it was like I'm paying $9.99 to be able to talk to these people. I'm like, really?
Worth it.
But that's just the old man cynic in me. Now that
you
I
won 2 Berk boxes in a row.
yeah, that's true. So I mean, it does make it worth it. But you know, I got to be lucky to do that. But I can honestly say that it's one of the best values I've ever seen in my lifetime. Because daily, that's
It's got amazing return.
as soon as I wake up on that, that's what I want to check. You know, and it's brought so much happiness, giggling, you know, just stupid little schoolgirl stuff. It's just hilarious to me. So
the chats are absolutely crazy for sure.
definitely worth it, Mr.
For
Berk.
sure. And I remember meeting Austin because of Two Brothers Comics and Panda and all that, and I've become great friends with him too. And I need to get some artwork done by him at some point. Do you have any more? Do you have any samples yet that I can send over to John?
No, but I will soon. I'm doing something for Panda that might be a pretty cool piece to show off. And then, of course, you know, with the Comics Curing Cancer at the end of the month, I'm drawing from start to finish, and we're going to auction off a 11 by 17 full piece that I'll be doing. So I'll probably be able to send him some of that stuff.
I would, as soon as you have it, man, I will send it over to him and see what he says for sure. He's always willing to work with pretty much everyone. Like he made his comic book online retailer website after watching Simple Man's Comics Forever because he's always been a comic book collector. He's like, you know what, I want to get into this. And so like a lot of the people that like he's worked with, they're just like people he's met like online, people he met at the gym, other people he knew that used to do comic book covers several years ago. So.
Yeah, I already know what I want from Austin. It's just the fact of getting the money to get it done because it's not going to be cheap, I don't think.
Yep, keep saving up. Maybe maybe someday. And you know what? I actually prefer trade. I don't like charging money. I don't do it for the money, and I think that the second it starts to turn into work, I'm not going to enjoy it anymore. So I'm doing everything in my power to stay as far away from that happening. But yeah, let me know your ideas, man. I'm happy to work with you and put something together for sure.
I don't like paying money either, so it's kind of a good trade there.
Works out well, don't it?
Yeah, there you go.
All right, how about you, Mr. Mark? What kind of stories do you have? Everything else?
I think one of the best and the most fond memories I have is it was like back in 1996 when they did the whole Marvel versus DC event, the 4-issue miniseries, and the way that they went about it was they put index cards in comic shops and LCSs with basically the main bouts on it, and you'd go in and you literally fill out who you want to win, and they would get mailed back in to determine the winners. And I remember being a kid filling out that card and even debating with adults that were in the shop at the time filling out the card too about how there's no way Spider-Man could beat Superboy, and he did, but I don't think he could. But I think that was one of my fondest memories was that whole event with Marvel versus DC happening.
I would have just picked DC characters. That's what I was doing.
For the most part, I think I did. I did put for the Hulk to beat Superman, but you know, at the time it was Banner Hulk, and when it all comes down to it, Hulk can't beat Superman. But man, that's a very nuanced debate. But at the time, that Hulk cannot beat that Superman. But Lobo beating Wolverine was a must, and then Wolverine won on popularity. And I remember how pissed I was as a kid. Like I'm like 96. I was like 9, 10 years old. And I remember like reading those issues, like just so mad, just waiting on them to come out, just wanting to flip through them quick just to see who was left standing at the end of each fight. I was pissed to see that Thor beat Captain Marvel. I'm like, how is that? He doesn't control Captain Marvel's lightning, and you just transform all over again if you did turn him off. Like, but I remember how cool it was when Aquaman was fighting Submariner, and it was the Peter David era Aquaman, you know. So he had the hook hand and the attitude, and his kid was dead, and Namor was fighting and talking about honor and this and that, and Aquaman's like, yeah, I cheat, and the next thing you know, a whale lands on Submariner from where he was like communicating with the. I'm like, man, this is fantastic. Just that whole experience of reading that for the first time as a kid and getting to be a part of it. That's probably one of the highlights of comics growing up for me.
And it's not really a hard stretch to see a 9-year-old Mark arguing these points at the LCA.
Yeah, grown-ups, dude. Grown-ups. Like, just have this little kid here arguing the merits of these superheroes that they probably weren't reading at the time.
And then just kicking them in the shin and just running out. All right, Mr. Austin, how about you?
I think that another huge positive, at least most recently, has been how I've become so open with what I read and collect now. Back in the 90s when I first started, I was so hard-headed, right? It was Spider-Man and Spawn, and that's all I wanted to listen to. But now I'm reading more indie stuff. I've opened up to a lot more Marvel and Thor and all these different types of characters, and it's like I've been missing what comic book collecting has been about for my entire life of collecting. So yeah, it's really exciting, especially now with all the indie books available today, and you can get exposed to writers all around the world so easily. And I've been enjoying that quite a bit. And I didn't realize I was such a horror fan either.
Well, it is quite popular these days.
Yeah.
Can I ask you have a guilty pleasure right now that nobody knows about?
Uh-oh.
That nobody knows about.
Keep it comic related.
Well, in that case, no.
Okay.
No, I think I've been pretty open about it overall, but I'm a huge fan of Strange Academy.
I can see it.
I mean, the book, it's kind of childish. It's not an advanced read by any means, but the Scotty Young and Humberto Ramos team up, I can't get enough of it, man. I love it.
Yeah, I've always dug Mr. Ramos's art too. It does lend to that story, and it does kind of give that youthfulness to it that I do appreciate. Just quickly slipping out of my hands as an old guy. Anyway, how about you, Mr. Chris? Any final stories?
Sure. I'll give you a negative. I was in Cleveland for Wizard World 4 or 5 years ago, maybe even 6 years ago, and Chris Hemsworth was the guest of honor. And I remember I got an original Thor coming soon poster that I wanted to get signed. Oh, okay.
You should sub up Steve, Chris.
When he subs me up, sure.
There you go.
Am I not sub to him?
And again, he doesn't like me. So there I was in Cleveland, and I had to finance this weekend trip to Cleveland. And I know what you're thinking. It's Cleveland. It can't be that expensive. But American dollars are expensive when you live in Canada. So I had just received in the trade a giant size X-Men #1, graded 4.5. And David Adams Card World, which is based out of Buffalo, was in Cleveland that weekend, and they were buying close to value. And I remember stopping at a couple booths, seeing what I could potentially get for giant size X-Men #1. And the best offer I got was $600 for a 4.5 6 years ago. And I took the money, and it financed my gas, my 2 nights at a hotel, my Chris Hemsworth autograph ticket, a couple other collectible things I got, and now that book is like what, $5,000-$6,000 potentially.
You also sold your dignity.
Yes.
Back in the industry.
Late on, keep coming late on. So it was just one of those.
I mean, you sold it for what it was worth. Like, it's no different than selling it for what it's worth today. Like,
and the thing is, the thing is, I actually hardballed the guy at David Adams, and he pulled up some eBay sold listing, and he's like, "This is what it's going for," and I said, "Well, that's what I want," and he's like, "Okay, I know I can make $100 off of this book this weekend, so I'll give it to you." So I got the money, and I had myself a great weekend. I got myself a Hemsworth autograph. I got memories of a weekend in Cleveland. I did go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but it is what it is. But it's just one of those moments like maybe I should have taken something else. But it's not a bad thing. It's just something.
He has the same story then.
Right. It's just one of those things. Yeah.
Nobody can predict the future.
Nobody can predict the future. Yeah.
2 weeks ago, I went 45 minutes talking about books I had, and I would have been driving a Lamborghini now.
Yeah.
With the stuff that I sold. Nobody can tell. And, people buying stuff now thinking it's going to be worth that in the future may have to do the opposite and be like, hey, the bubble burst and it's not worth what I paid for. So.
Well, how do you feel about the comic book bubble? Do you think it's going to pop pretty soon? Do we think that things are going to go back down and mellow out?
I think things will go back down, but I don't know if they'll ever go back down to what they were a year ago.
Yeah. I think it may calm down, but just with that being said, look at Stray Dogs. Stray Dogs right now is one of the hottest things going, and it's like Stray Dogs #1 in a 9.8, just a normal cover, is now clearing $500.
Yeah, not only that,
that book is what, not even 6 months old.
I think it's all contingent on the popularity of Phase 4. You have a lot of stuff like Shang-Chi, Eternals. You're not front running your big hitters in the Marvel Universe anymore, and how much can those people carry a generation of moviegoers and lovers and bring them into collecting comics? That's where the extra surge of collectors comes from that has driven this increase. So when that goes away, you're just going to see that taper happen. And I don't think that kind of stuff is going to bring the popularity. I mean, you already see it with the shows. The people that show out in droves to the movies aren't showing out the same for the shows. It's hardlining people, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think that even with the the option of something is killing the children, now that writers have been assigned, I can only imagine where those books are going to go. So if you've got them, I would say keep them. But it's cool to see modern books and books as young as Stray Dogs getting so much credit for a couple months ago for writers and artists that nobody's ever even heard of.
Back in the 80s and 90s, it was like James Patterson and Michael Crichton. Mm-hmm. They sourced TV shows and movies from novels all the time. And now they're just switching over to a younger generation medium, just going to more edgy stories and more creative stories. All the work's done for them. They don't have to hire writers to create content. They just have to hire writers to adapt content.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think somebody brought up a good point earlier in saying that now people are able to go out again and not getting that free stimmy money, that the bubble may shrink a little bit, but I agree. I don't think the prices will go all the way back, and there'll be a reduction, but hopefully we can get some stuff that we want for cheap.
This isn't getting cheap again.
No, but the John Jang cover you sold, well, you wouldn't sell. Somebody might sell to try to finance that book. Maybe. All right, we'll close it there. We'll ask you guys what's going on your channels this week. Any final thoughts that you might have? We'll start off with the big guy, Mr. Berk, with the blue hat on.
Blue hat Berk, let's get it.
What do you got going on, Mr. Berk? And do you have any final closing thoughts?
And do you have a microphone?
That was weird. It's a purple hat. We have a auction tonight here in about an hour, a little over an hour, on my channel. I do have a collection video that I put out early for the friend and family tier members that will go out tomorrow. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. I spent a couple $100. Got some pretty cool books. We got Meet the Berk Fam episode 5 on Monday with either Chip or Hoarder's Hide, one of the two. I can't remember. Tuesday is a members only live stream. I'm going to show up the Berk box. We're going to hang out, talk some not safe for work stories. You guys can hear the old poop story. There's a funny one. There's a funny one.
Does it involve Spangles?
No, it actually did not. Yeah, that's what's going on my channel coming up over the next couple days. I don't know what's going on Sunday. I'll get something out though.
All right, and if you guys don't know, if I'm fortunate enough to win the Berk box this time around, it's officially being renamed the Nick box. So
Oh, is that so?
that's
Is that so?
that's
All right. All right.
all right. How about you, Mr. Mark? What do you got going on other than hitting 10,000 subs in 3 days?
No, well, hopefully, man, hopefully we hit these milestones real quick here. As soon as YouTube Studio updates the last 2 days, I'll have over 4,000 watched hours. So that's a
Nice.
big deal. And then Sunday night, I'll be doing At Weeks in the weekly spoiler field look back at This Week in Comics with the Comic Vet down there and the Cosmic Campfire. And then just stuff coming out every week. Just a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You know, every Friday morning is the community hangout. I may or may not be there, but everyone's invited.
That's the whole key, is to get your watch hours up and not even be on the stream.
Yeah.
Well, in all sincerity, it's funny to think about, but it's just I'm not going to be like, hey, guys, everyone, y'all got to go. I have to spend 10 minutes to go run, do something, then I'm free the rest of the day.
No, it's awesome. I mean, to just watching it in the beginning and now becoming a regular part of it, I look forward to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to get all my stuff done, my work done before Friday, so I can.
Yeah, it's a
ease in
blast.
there.
Like Steve said, it's easily the most enjoyable part about being a part of this community is just actually getting to hang out with people, getting to just shoot the breeze. And like with the long format stuff, I'm a huge fan of long format anything, because that's when you actually have time to actually get to stuff you don't think about. And that's where the good conversations happen. And, you know, it's not just comic stuff we talk on there. We talk a little bit about everything. It got real personal again today, and it was awesome that somebody chose to share like those real personal stories about where they were when certain stuff was happening. Nick, I think that happened. We did that on the first one, didn't we?
Yeah, we did it a few weeks ago, and
yeah, the very first one that like just happened to come up. Like, it's just crazy how impactful that moment is for so many people, especially y'all living up there.
For sure. Hey, Austin, were you in New York at that time? Or you had moved already?
No, I was already out here.
All right. Well, Mark, thank you. Thank you for. Well, I guess my question is: before Sunday night, will you have slept at all, or?
I slept for about three hours with Finn. That's what happened with the last time I jumped off the stream. Finn was napping on the couch and he was about to roll off, so I jumped off and went to go like catch him and set him back up. And I sat there with him for a minute. And that, I mean, if you got kids, especially 3-year-olds, especially as cool as Finn, like they're sleeping pills, man. And when you've been up for like 29 hours at that point, you're.
Well, he actually came on the stream. You were in his lap, and he was doing this funny thing.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Austin LeMay, I know you have some stuff coming up on the 31st, the 30th, and 31st. But what else do you want to give a shout out to?
Going to be on Berk's channel here in a couple of hours. We're going to be selling some good books. If you're not there to buy, just come and hang out. It's always a good time. It's also a good representation of, to a certain degree, what the Berk family chat is on Instagram. So it should be that should be a great time. But yeah, other than that, just follow me on Instagram. Check out some of my stuff. And
what happens at 75 watchers?
Oh yeah, if we can get 75 active people in the Berk fam chat tonight, I will put up one of my my Batman 100 cover.
I'm coming for it.
And I can say,
So that'll go up for auction tonight.
Which is also a minor key, because that's the first cameo appearance of Ghostmaker if he turns out to be anything as well.
Yeah.
He's got such good hair on that drawing.
Yeah.
I feel you, brother Chris. I feel you.
Thank you, my man.
All right, so we'll segue to you. We'll leave the last spot for you. What do you guys? What do you got going on?
Tomorrow I'll be popping on Rob's Fat Stack of Comics tomorrow afternoon for Slab Hub, where he basically goes through one box of slabs, and I provide commentary as he pulls each box out. He gives away a bunch of books during the live stream. So for those that don't know about that, at least tune in for the opportunity to win a lot of good books. A lot of them are actually autographed as well. Some point early Sunday, I'll be releasing Two Cool Guys, Two Hot Picks. It's the video that Mark and I put together where we provide information on what we feel is a book that you should consider picking up this new comic book day. One pick by each. Mark's already sent me his videos, so I got to record mine and edit it all together. Sunday night, I'll be joining Mark, like you mentioned earlier, on at week's end. It's something that I look forward to all week long. We do have pretty good chemistry, Mark, Ryan, and myself together that night. Poking fun at Canada and me trying to at least stand up for the nation. But with all that aside, though, Monday I'll be having another Mystery Box Monday. It'll be a return. Last week I didn't have any books, or pardon me, any boxes. This week will be my attempt through Torpedo Comics at a Daredevil #1. It is a 0.5 grade, but still, it's a key for a lot of collectors. I know most people have a lot of respect for Daredevil, even if they're not a monthly reader of Daredevil. So that'll be my attempt at it. And Wednesday it'll be live from my car, where I do my pull list just outside my LCS, usually around noon, before I go into the asylum and make sure the lunatics are okay. So that's my lineup.
All right, cool, awesome. I want to thank you guys all for joining me today. This was fun. I want to give a shout out to Dank Comics. He gave a video today for a sub push for 300 for me, and it's been hitting my channel like gangbusters. I also want to shout out Shop for Comics, another good guy who's on his road to 100. And just you guys who show up in the chat today, thank you for showing up. You guys are a blast to interact with, and thank you very much. Appreciate you guys, and Cowabunga. Go Cats. Steve, you want to take us out?
And it's morphin' time!
There's some pain behind that.